Hey everyone, so today I'm going to give you some tips on how you can improve your portrait photography. So the first thing is choosing the right lens. So you can do portrait photography with pretty much any lens you have, but if you're looking into some portrait photography lenses, I personally love shooting portraits on the 50mm and a 24-70. On the 70mm end are usually really good places to start. My next tip is to think about the lighting. So there are no rules to photography in what kind of lighting that you use for portraits. If you're after finding some simple natural lighting techniques for your portraits, I would recommend to shoot backlit where the sun is behind your subject. This is especially good because it creates a really flattering look for your subject's skin, and it also looks really beautiful. You can shoot backlit pretty much any time of day, but the time of day that it looks the best is towards the afternoon or even during golden hour. And if you don't have any sunshine or you want to try something different, I would also recommend to shoot in the shade, as that also creates really even lighting for a really nice portrait. So my next tip is to get in close. Intimacy is key with portrait photography. So when I first started photography all the way back in high school, my art teacher gave me a really great tip, which is if I'm shooting and the shot isn't working, is to just get in closer. Often when you're starting photography, it can be a little bit intimidating getting up close to your subject, but trust me, this is where the magic happens. Speaking of intimacy, it's good to get to know your subject's personality and what they're interested in. If you're shooting with a model, it's great to have a particular style in mind of what you're after. So maybe you want to shoot something really moody, or maybe you want to take some really happy photos or do something like ethereal. It's great to be able to communicate that to your model so they can also work in embodying that feel with the photos. Another tip is to get your subject to move around. So you're just going to keep capturing the same photo if your subject is completely static in a shot. It's great to do big movements, to do little movements, get them to look around. They can look at the camera, they can look away from the camera, and it's up to you to start communicating that with your subject while you're shooting in order to make that happen. Sometimes when you're shooting models, they can naturally just do this, but if you're shooting someone who's a little bit more inexperienced, it's great to communicate with them that you want them to maybe move their chin down or to look over to the side or to move their shoulders around. It's also good to get creative with your posing. A portrait doesn't always have to be someone sitting staring right at the camera. You know, it can be someone moving around or walking around. You can get them to lean up against a tree or lay down in the grass. Get as creative as you can when taking photos. I mean, it's good to have the simple photos, but it's also great to push yourself and step outside of your boundaries and try something different. I also personally find that it really helps when you're shooting someone that isn't comfortable with being in front of the camera to get them to do more things where they're looking away from the lens. I don't know if you're like me, but I get pretty nervous in front of a camera sometimes, and it really helps when I can break my eye contact with the lens because it's just so intimidating looking at a lens. So if you're shooting someone who isn't a model, I always recommend to tell them to kind of look away sometimes or to look down or to get them to walk around just so they get a little bit more comfortable in front of your camera. And one of my last tips is to take more than one photo. Just like your subject, you as the photographer should also be constantly moving around as you're taking photos. This gives you an opportunity to play around with different angles to see if something works better than what you're currently doing, if the lighting shifts a little bit as you move around. And you never know what great shot you might come across just by moving a little bit. So sometimes you might be shooting someone straight on, but you might find that if you move up a little bit and point your lens down, you get a super flattering portrait of whoever you're taking a photo of. The same goes for getting a more creative portrait from the day. You could find that like maybe laying down and shooting through the grass or moving up and shooting through some leaves that are in a tree nearby will get you a really amazing photo. And you will never know that unless you get up and you move around and you try different things while you're taking photos. So you can't just pick up a camera and expect to take amazing portraits out of nowhere. You really need to keep all these little things in mind and practice. You need to work for it. You need to communicate with your subject and you need to try different things. Push yourself out of your boundary and try shooting from an angle that you've never shot from before, or try using a lens that you've never shot with before. You just need to get out there and try different things, and the more you practice, the better you'll get at taking amazing portraits. And my absolute final piece of advice, which is just something that I personally go by, is that emotions come first and camera settings come second. So you could take the most amazing photo in the world that has the perfect exposure, has the perfect white balance, the focus is like tack sharp, and it could be the most bland, boring thing ever because you weren't connecting with your subject and there's no emotion or any story behind the image you took. So for me, conveying a mood to an image is very, very important and something that I always think about when I'm taking photos. So I always have some kind of reference towards a mood or an emotion or a style that I want to capture that day, and I communicate that with my team, with my model, with whoever I'm taking a photo of, and that's what I work towards to capture on the day. I hope that's giving you guys some motivation or some ideas of things that you can do next time you're at a photo shoot taking some portraits. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you all next time. Bye!